Hello again. Well, thank you for clicking on this video. If you're new to this, I'm Leanne Holmesy, and this is my corny, but I think utilitarian VIP tool. It's a VIP customer making tool, and we're just going to relax and talk about one or two of the blocks that I have on the bottom of this tool. You know we're going to relax because I have my sweater on. So let's not take anything too seriously and just talk a little bit about the prospect of coaching employees to create relationships instead of sales. And that's all this is, and this is an opportunity for you to talk to your staff or ask me to come in and do it for you. But honestly, for you to talk to your staff about the few things that they can do that are different and unique that gets people opening up, talking more about possibilities and not just food. For instance, there's a block on the bottom. Well, I have get your name in it, thank you, meet the neighbors, incomplete parties. Incomplete parties are probably the easiest because it's a nice way to walk up to a guest and say, "Oh, are you waiting for another guest?" And when they say yes, you can say, "Oh, can I get your guest's name so I can greet them at the door?" Oh my gosh. Not one person on the planet has ever offered this. It's not amazing, but it's a gesture. It's so hospitable. And when their guest walks in the door, in one flash, you just gave them a picture of a better experience than they had anticipated giving their guest, whether it's business or an exciting dinner or romantic or whatnot. You just painted a picture of something better than just the dinner that they were planning. So 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, "Oh, thank you, it's Brenda." So when you tell your staff to keep their eyes peeled for that second guest coming in, you now have created something for your employees that they weren't thinking about before. They weren't thinking about doing anything more than serving, upselling, and getting the hell out of work to go party. Now they're thinking, "Oh great, one more thing I have to do is now look for somebody that hasn't even arrived yet." But if you think about this in a different context, now when that person arrives and you can kind of sense, you can share, eventually you'll be able to figure out who's waiting for who when that second person walks in, and it takes a while, but you get used to figuring out who's who, and you'll be able to share that with your employees too. But when your second guest walks in and you say, "Oh, Brenda," or "You must be Brenda," or "Hello, Brenda," or "Welcome, Brenda," oh my God, Brenda is on the floor, just literally so impressed with you, and you just became much more than a server. You are now somebody on Brenda's radar. But more than that, that server now has every license to use her name for the entire time that she's there. What a luxury that you can't even start to explain to your staff what a luxury that is until they start to experience it themselves. They may take their regular customers for granted right now, but when they start to realize that the entire experience of a regular customer is 50% less work for them, then you can start to calculate how much less work walking they actually have to do for a regular customer. They can communicate from across the room to a regular customer. And when you have somebody's first name, you're like ready to go. You've already accomplished the first step in creating a regular customer. So when you see somebody who, when your staff sees somebody waiting for somebody else, obviously the place settings are still there, so they are waiting for another guest. You're not going to awkwardly ask somebody who's dining alone if they're waiting for somebody else. You see that there's another place setting, so you can tell your staff to easily walk up to the guest and say, "Oh, are you waiting for another guest? Or can I know the name of your guest so I can greet them at the door?" I would say 10% of the time your seated guest might say, "Oh, don't worry, I'll see them already," or "I will see them," which is completely fine. It's fine. None of these blocks are meant to create a VIP customer out of somebody who maybe that your staff doesn't want to create a VIP customer out of. So with that in mind, this tool also gives your staff all the license in the world to create a section of his dreams. So if the person that's seated doesn't want any assistance in greeting the guest that they're waiting for, so be it. But 90% of the customers that are seated are going to actually want that extra service, and it takes absolutely nothing for your server to do. It's just a couple of extra words, keeping your eye on the door, and boom, now you've created a scenario where you can walk by, your employee can walk by mid-meal and say, "How is that, Brenda? Isn't that amazing? I don't know how Chef does it." And when Brenda turns around and says anything positive, you could turn that, or your employee can turn that into a completely magical moment. Just being able to use her name opens up so many doors. If she says, "Oh my God, it was the best salad, the best burger, the best steak I've ever had. Oh my gosh." This is now another opportunity to go into another block and walk into the kitchen, and if the chef has time, bring the chef out and say, "Brenda, this is Chef Michael, and he wanted to thank you personally for coming in. Oh my gosh, is that going to be an experience that Brenda remembers forever?" But you can't really do that with somebody that you don't know. So if you don't know somebody's name, then you can't really go the extra mile. So when your chef is now at the employee's table, now the employee is freed up to talk to other people. And you know what? The tables around those people, around the chef talking to Brenda, are going to wonder who Brenda is. Brenda's going to feel like a VIP, obligated a little bit more to think twice more before she tips. She may be tipping a little higher. The guest that she's dining with, you have during that dinner you've had plenty of time to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, and your name is?" And so now you would have both of those guest names. If they are wonderful, you've got an opportunity to put that into what my favorite tool, which is not on here, it is my priceless, and you can get them anywhere, composition book. I don't leave home without it because the pages don't fall out, and if I put a customer's name into my composition book, it is a pretty good bet that there's somebody that I want to remember for life. I want to remember what the weather was like that day, what the chef said, what they ate, so that the next time they come in, I can create a conversation that opens up even more doors. So I digress. But everything that just happened, the chef coming out, getting the other guest's name who's already seated, potentially creating a better tip, all happened because the guest was seated incomplete. He was in an incomplete party. So incomplete party on this tool over here is just one block. That's just one block of an experience that is happening left and right 1,000 times a minute, 1,000,000 times a day, everywhere in the world, and you can capitalize on that happening just by taking a second look at what's going on and then relating that to your employees about all the possibilities that they have in their customers and how they don't have to settle for a 20% tip when they can actually start creating a regular customer who tips, I mean, generally they tip way above 20%. They're easier to work for or work with regardless. So even if they're just tipping 20%, but you've created them that you've created a VIP out of them or a regular customer, your staff will start to understand through you or me that they work less for regular customers. So even if they're making the same amount of money, they are leaving their shift with 50% more energy for the things that they want to do outside, whether that's their kids, their book writing, their plays, their business that they're starting, their jewelry line, whatever it is. Creating that regular customer gives them 50% more energy for what they have because they're doing 50% less work. Once you get somebody's name, you can literally take their order from across the room. You can communicate to them across the room. You can greet them from across the room. And everyone around Brenda is going to want to be Brenda. And you're going to find that the level of interaction for each server, every one of your employees, is bumped up a level when the customers around Brenda want to be treated like Brenda. Eventually, your employees' stations will be filled with Brendas and whoever her dining companion was, and your servers will already know ahead of time what they're having. They will be able to pre-order, they will be able to create tasting tables and drop ideas into Brenda's head the third or fourth time she comes in that you know, the events that you personally as a server can create are so unique that even a dinner can become a tasting through you. And all of these ideas that she had never even thought about can't even start without a relationship. And that relationship starts with an incomplete party, opening a door, meeting the rest, the employees in the neighborhood, all these different blocks. So stay tuned.